Well, first of all, thank you very much for coming over to speak with me. Of course, this is an issue that a lot of people are talking about today. And we, first of all, want to confirm, is this you in the phone call with a South Carolina prison inmate?
So this is me in the phone call, yes.
Okay. Representative Matthews, who are the other people, first of all, on that call?
So hadn't named the woman, but she was an activist that called me on three-way and said, hey, I have somebody I'm really excited for you to meet. So I'm like, oh, okay, cool. But I didn't know he was an inmate and I didn't know him. So I didn't find that out until after the call was over.
Did you know you were speaking with a prison inmate?
No, I did not. No. So I messaged her after and I said, hey, why didn't you tell me? And she said, oh, I assumed you knew him. So I assumed you knew. I mean, I guess apparently he's pretty popular or whatever, but I mean, I don't know him. So, I mean, I wouldn't know that.
In the phone call, let's just get right to it. We hear you encouraging illegal activity. That's what you're doing on the phone call.
So I'm not encouraging illegal activity. So I had this interview earlier so when you're in private, for me, you know, as a black woman in our society, we talk trash. I mean, we just relaxed and we talked down. So it wasn't like, you know, I'm not encouraging people to do those things, but the context was left out of the conversation, right? So the context of, like, when I said sleepers, you know, it wasn't that it's such a foreign concept. Everybody forgot about Operation Chaos from the 2020 presidential election, where Republicans were encouraged to vote in the Democratic primary. We also have a prime example of that in a couple of senators, U.S. senators, that are sitting right now and are Democrat in name only. But they keep infiltrating our party, and, you know, we're not saying anything, right? So it's like, let's not act like this is new stuff. Everything I said is something I've talked about on my campaign trail. It's the tone and the way I said it, I think, that caught people so off guard. But that was a private conversation with a black individual, and we were talking the talk, right? When people get in private, they don't necessarily talk the same way they do. When you're on air, you talk a certain way. When you're around your family, you don't sound like you sound when you're on air.
Because but I think part of the concern about this is that you are saying this is a private conversation, but I listened to the tape. I listened to the tape and I heard you say that very clearly stealing signs, using drug money to finance campaigns, Democrats running as Republicans. So you're actually saying this is what the other side does. This is what we should do also.
So
it doesn't sound as if you're joking at all. Are you saying that you're joking about this? Or?
No, I mean, it's tongue in cheek, right? It's not a joke, but it's kind of it's sarcasm based on what I've said. So the crazy part about this is my supporters have heard me say and talk about these things in length, and they're not taken aback by it at all, because I do have an expanded conversation. That was a chopped up audio of pieces of a conversation that were put together. But this is not anything that I haven't addressed. So when we talk about signs, how many people out there have heard me say I had 6 banging yard signs and somebody stole all of them? Almost all of my followers will raise their hand and say they've heard me say it. The context and when I was talking about the signs was in reference to things like that. But I'm not saying for people to do it. So when people keep saying, oh, you're encouraging people to do it. No, you can thank Project Veritas for that, because that was a one-on-one conversation where he knew exactly what I meant. So when things get lost in translation to the public that weren't meant for the public, who is that on?
Right.
So
I listened to the tape.
So
I listened to the recording.
So wait, let me address the dope boy money, because that's the part everybody likes to run to.
No, I wasn't going to say that.
Okay, so
I will just ask you this. I heard you describe this as a strategy. You said, I have a strategy. Was this a part of the strategy?
No, this was not.
But you said that on the tape.
Yeah, but that was in reference to something else.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So now let's talk about the dope boy money.
So the dope boy money. So I find it funny that everybody skips over the first line of that sentence, which is that my campaign was not really doing well financially, right? So if I had dope boy money, would I be saying that? If I had dope boy money, wouldn't I have yard signs and bumper stickers and all this fancy stuff? Wouldn't I have stuff? Like, we would not be struggling if I had dope boy money.
So yeah, I've heard you say that you had $720
when I ran my
When
first
you
race.
ran your
Yeah.
first race.
So let's take this in context. That was a tongue-in-cheek statement, but the way I was talking about it, and again, nothing that I haven't said on my campaign trail. A drug is a drug is a drug. Tim Scott has accepted over $200,000 in pharmaceutical money. We talk about opioid crisis every single week in the State House. That's a drug. It's a problem as well. So what we see is that when it's one of the drugs in the upper echelon, it's legal, and nobody cares about when they use that money. But when it comes to the black community, we talk about crack, cocaine, and heroin. It's like, oh, but those are illegal. So that's like hush, like we can't, oh my God. So then it gets into that, the haves and the have-nots. It's like, oh, we're always gonna be able to keep them here because X, Y, and Z. So that is not me saying take dope money from heroin, crack, and cocaine. I'm giving a reference as in a drug is a drug is a drug. Don't keep telling me that, oh, well, drug money is bad when he's taking drug money. Might be pharmaceutical, but it's still drug money. When we talk about, I gave the example of my committee, right? They wanted to take ivermectin to treat COVID. It says on the FDA website very plainly that it is not something that you can use to treat COVID. But they came and put a bill in the State House, Republicans did, to get that approved. And when they did, I said, so, but the FDA says that you can't, well, we want something other than the vaccine. We want to be able to try something else. I said, oh, much like my people want to use medical marijuana, I know Jamaicans who use it in soup. They make rubs out of it. They do all kind of other things, not just smoke it. But when it's that, it's like, oh, well, no, we need to study it for another 80 years before we can approve that because people on marijuana just, do you see what I'm saying? This is the conversation that I want to have when it comes to representation. I'm not going to bite my tongue, Carolyn, because people want me to come in a perfect box. I have not done anything illegal. Judge me by my works. I have been serving for 4 years, 4, with 5 children, driving back and forth up the road, not having a bunch of money like everybody else, struggling to make ends meet. If I was interested in all that other stuff, I would have been quit. I am doing this because I care. I'm offering myself to the people because I care, but I will not let people beat up on me just because I offer myself to the public.
Do you regret that phone call?
I regret the phone call because it has taken away from the purpose so much. But at the same time, it's been a blessing and a curse because our race has not received that much coverage. We had 4 black women running on the ticket, and we didn't get very much coverage at all this election cycle. So it's a blessing and a curse because what they did was elevate, give me an amplified platform to talk about the things that matter to me. Like I said in my live this morning, they need to sweep around their front door before they come trying to sweep around ours. Right now, we are watching courtroom after courtroom after courtroom with all this crap coming out, and they still have the audacity, the narcissism to point a finger at somebody else. No, I'm sorry, you're worried about my words, I'm worried about your actions.
So you're saying, once again, once and for all, were you encouraging illegal activity in this phone call?
I do not encourage illegal activity ever.
So you're saying that everything that people heard, it's misconstrued. We misunderstood what you were saying.
It's tongue in cheek. And so, like, let's say, let me try to give it, I try to put it where the goats can get it, as they say. Let's say you and I were joking about, not even joking, but let's say we having a girlfriend conversation and we kind of understand each other where we don't have to necessarily spell it out in detail. But if somebody else were to overhear it, they might not know exactly what we meant by what we meant. That's why so many people have questions. Like, what were you talking about when you were talking about this? The reason why you have those questions is because you weren't a part of the conversation.
How did this phone call get out? How did we come to here?
Well, apparently Project Veritas has connections that I don't know about, and this call was since February, so do you think it's random that it came out 2 days before the election? I don't. I have no idea. I don't know how it came out, but I know that for me, seeing Trump retweeted the father of the insurrection himself, who said he could grab women by the pee and it was locker room talk. So really, I mean, you can really retweet and try to point a finger. That tells me one thing. They are scared to death that I'm going to be the nominee to run against Tim Scott.
Do you believe that you will be the nominee?
I do believe I will be the nominee, and I believe that scares them because everything I say it out loud. And I don't have to I don't have to go back, Carolyn. I don't have to trace my steps back and say, oh my God, I said this, and I said this, and I said this. I'm here to give myself to the people of South Carolina for a purpose. I'm not going to be in politics forever, but this is my time now because I've been called to this spot. I have a strong back. No matter how much they keep throwing at me, I'm going to keep showing up for working families here in South Carolina. And then when that time is done, I hope that by that time I've inspired some young folks, some other women, some single mothers to get into this. This is why good people don't get in politics. Because when you get in politics and you become part of the limelight, people feel like they can just beat down on you. They just want to beat you up and beat you up. And they don't realize you're just simply offering yourself. That is a part of the problem on why we can't get good people to stay in. Because don't nobody want to be beat up for trying to do good. Nobody. And I talk rough and all that happened, but we have a bigger purpose to serve here. All of us have a responsibility. It's not what will I do for y'all. It's what can we do together. I'm only one person. I serve in this role and I'll take the lead and I'll make decisions, but it's going to take all of us to make it work.
If you heard your opponent in a similar call, and as you said, this was, a place where you thought you were comfortable and talking amongst friends and people understood you and understood that this wasn't a directive. You weren't telling people to go and do this. But if you heard an opponent in a similar call, would you be concerned?
I wouldn't. No. I mean, we hear it all the time now. I hear stuff all the time about what Republicans are going to do and what they're not going to do.
So what's the difference? Why is what you're saying different than if you heard someone else say it?
So let me tell you why I wouldn't be concerned. Because I deal with people how they treat me, and I deal with people where what they do connects with what I do, right? So for instance, one of the most hated Republicans in the State House was talking to me, and we were talking about some stuff, and somebody said, why would you even talk to him? And I said, well, I mean, why would I not? He has a Confederate flag on his porch at home. I said, at his house? I don't give a what he have at his porch at home. When he's here with me, he's respectful. When he talks to me, he's not disrespecting me. So as long as we can have a civil conversation, he can fly all the stuff he wants at his house. People get so sidetracked by little petty stuff that we can't make real progress. How long have we been doing this? This bashing session, what has it yielded us? I'll wait. If anybody out there in your listening audience wants to tell me what these bashing sessions on candidates has yielded us, besides people who don't mind being talked about and don't care and still vote how they want to and not listen to the will of the people, because that takes a conscience and a heart. If you want to tell me something that's yielded us besides that, I'm all ears. But I can't see where it's benefited us up until this point.
Representative Matthews, thank you very much for speaking with me. And one final word, any regrets with this phone call?
I do regret that the phone call happened. I wish that, I would have known, because everything is not palatable for everybody. When you talk to children, you talk in a way that's palatable for them. When you talk to adults, you talk in a way that's palatable for them. But this was, I hear people say worse than this. I have so many text messages about this call, and it literally says F them, or I don't give a F, and that's explicit, right? But that was sent to me privately. So that's like me taking a screenshot and posting that this person texted me that. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
With your children, you have children. Now, if they hear this call, what is your...
I've already talked to my children about it. They think it's stupid. They know that their mom is passionate. I don't curse in front of them. I don't use the N word in front of them. I don't do any of that in front of them. So when I told them about the call, and I had to because I've been getting threats and stuff too. So just to make them aware, I always tell my children what's going on. I tell people all the time, they should hear it from the person who loves them the most. Don't let them figure it out for themselves because they're young, and don't let strangers decipher it for them.
So are you saying that it was okay because you were believed to be in a private conversation? And do you feel as if, because you are a lawmaker, you should be held to a different level, a different standard, because you have the trust of the public?
So I was never saying it was okay, but what was lost in the chopped up audio that you all got to hear was that this person knew of my speeches and all of that stuff. So what y'all were hearing was an understood conversation, even though y'all don't understand because you weren't the other person. That makes sense?
Yeah.
So it was understood that I was just talking and giving a for instance necessarily when it comes to like the drug money. I am serious about that. I am so serious about that because I'm so sick of seeing it. Oh, well, he can take pharmaceutical money. He can take NRA money. He can do all of this stuff because it's deemed legal. I am sorry, but I'm at the point in my life where I have learned. I didn't know this much about politics until I got into it. But what I have learned since I have been serving is that as long as they think it's right and put it into law, they'll keep telling you you're wrong, even though they may be wrong. Right? So it's like, well, who's right? Well, right according to who? Or why is this okay, but this is not okay? We have a lot of that going on. Fiscal conservatism, I love when people say I'm fiscally conservative. What does that mean to you? Fiscally conservative, what does that mean to you? If you hear the term, what do you think of?
Well,
you're careful with money, right?
Exactly.
Typically it means you're careful with money.
Right.
But in the State House, we don't fund our priorities first. We fund everything, and we don't fully fund our priorities. We fund projects as well. Mm-hmm. Is that fiscally conservative? No. So I've come to know now that fiscally conservative to them simply means the money goes where they want it to go. Right. That doesn't necessarily mean it goes where it needs to go.
Well, and that's always the case.
So that's with everything. So when we talk about drugs, and we talk about alcohol, we talk about pharmaceuticals, we talk about the time that liquor stores have to close. The Christian community wants it to not be open on Sundays, but what if you don't believe what they believe?
Right.
So as long as it's the way they want it, it's right. Anything else is wrong. Mm-hmm. And that's where my conversation is with this whole pharmaceutical money and all this stuff.
But this is something that you're describing is beyond politics, right? I mean, that's just people.
But no, it's not beyond politics because laws are what make things legal and illegal.
Right.
So it's not beyond politics, right? Because when that beauty queen committed suicide and me and another pretty black woman were sitting together, one of my white legislator colleagues walked up to us and said, "But do you think she was having an affair with a married man and he wouldn't marry her and that's why she did it?" I said, Did the news say that? And she said, "Well, no." I said, "Well, did her mom say that?" She said, "Well, no." The other girl looked at me. I looked at her. I said, "Well, I'm just trying to figure out where you got that from." And she said, "Well, I was just thinking that." And I said, I was so confused. And I looked back and I said, "So you didn't hear that anywhere?" And she said, "No, that's just what I came up with." And when she walked away, I said, "Is that what she think of pretty black women?" But do you? So
I'm like, what? How did we
exactly? But I'm saying my point is biases play into these laws. So when we talk about things that people of color deal with, and as far as legality versus illegality, that's where law and politics really come into play, because those biases show themselves in these laws.